We could talk more than 20 hours about the technical condition of Cyberpunk after 4 years of updates, disappearing roads, unloaded textures, randomly spawned objects in front of you, but CD Projekt never actually got the full appreciation for Night City itself, and today is the day of searching for the smallest, totally useless details of this incredible place. And don't worry, I will definitely miss something important, so you can tell me in the comments where's the best place to spend time in Night City. When I arrived there for the first time, I just saw many NCPD and Arasaka soldiers that wanted to stop me for whatever reason, and I thought, damn, I will not have any content from this location. But it just seemed a little sus that this waterfront would only had one main road and nothing was there to be seen except one Arasaka skyscraper and a cool lonely tunnel. It just looked like a cheap cozy ghetto that's there only for making a map a bit bigger. However, I didn't give up and kept searching till I found a fence, after which I saw dogs. And finally, that's where the things did get more interesting. You're still reminded by the whole environment that you're walking in industrial zone, probably for Arasaka purposes. However, after I saw a boat, you know that I only had one mission. The view was pretty cool there, but the cooler part was actually getting into some ghetto markets where NPCs were chilling, you know, some music, underage kids selling pigs to strangers. This place had a good vibe, but there was more to explore from this location because I saw a tunnel, but it was not the same tunnel as under the base of Arasaka. This one looked different. And that was proper ghetto finally, with junkies on every corner sleeping under the highway, partying on laughably quiet music, sleeping in a tent. There was also some important mission happening there in a story which I can't remember, so that means there's many details referring to the Night City itself, and when you go further through all of these tents you can actually hear some weird horror noises. It finally had that feel like, okay, it's there because it got some purpose for the Night City, which I simply didn't felt in the beginning. But anything else except this ghetto is not somehow unique to me. Maybe you will type me in the comments that I missed something essential, and if I did, please do it, but the overall experience of Arasaka Waterfront is on the weaker side. I would say 6.5 out of 10. I felt bad that I didn't caught the real industrial experience because the whole Arasaka workplace is closed. Well, we don't have to travel too far to visit a nice and honest industrial part of Night City, and it's actually quite unbelievable how the environment could change in this game so quickly. Because I basically travel like half a kilometer from Waterfront, and it's almost giving you a retro vibe in some sense, which is something you don't see anywhere else in Night City. You can see many chimneys reminding me where do I come from, and if there wouldn't be these futuristic lamps and huge billboards all over the place, I would think that I'm in Alderney City from Liberty City. Industrial Zone is just so much bigger and more explorable than the waterfront because there's many areas opened. For example, I just somehow walk into a working hall with containers where I'll store progression cards and ammo. However, how is it possible that it's just so lonely there? Like, there's a freaking huge docks with some construction site and I just casually walks there with no serious problem at all, except 4 drones which you can destroy in 2 seconds, and I could loot everything what I wanted. To find out if this was just an exception, it was necessary to continue with my scientific research of going to every useless corner in the industrial zone where CD Projekt was trying to justify that it's not just a huge empty space. Occasionally you can find there an NCPD scanner or Cyber Psycho sighting if you have Phantom Liberty, but there's not much happening there. Even it is considerably bigger, the more time I spend there, the more I appreciate the sceneries like in the whole Night City, but nothing extraordinary that would stand down from a high benchmark of a city center. So my extremely scientific research forced me to get closer to my favorite location, still not the top, but we are getting there, and Little China is finally what I was looking for. It's absolutely epic experience that they're finally giving me a sense of a real cyberpunk future. Nothing will top how these skyscrapers connected together when you feel so small and miserable, and you can actually see the real life on the streets with advertisements and NCPD. It kind of looks like some downtown because all of these buildings are blocking the sound, so it's on the darker side. However, NPCs on the street are also a bit darker than I expected. I thought that it's a Chinatown, so there could be actually some Chinese people, but you know, Cyberpunk don't give a damn what street it is, you will only see generic NPCs all over the place. I've put my classic tactic to just drive with my roadster across the whole place, hoping that Chinatown will show me something new, and actually it did, because I didn't knew that Night City got a metro transport. It's basically just a fast travel but less common and more fancy with a special card animation, but I appreciate CD Projekt for this feature. It's just something that no one will ever use. Overall, still a small location, reaching only a kilometer from one side to another, but fortunately it's optically much bigger than you would thought because all of these huge skyscrapers and also because of the actual life in the streets. You also have much more NCPD scanners and missions and gigs to do so you occasionally drive there to make a few bucks by murdering 30 people. What you really have to appreciate about Night City is how much detail these locations are, like this basketball court under the highway or little food markets. Wait. An Asian person in Night City, holy shit. Okay, I finally have Chinese experience, what I was looking for, even though I don't really know if she's Chinese. Anyway, great location that I'm really looking forward to come back there someday. I would say solid 8 out of 10. We're slowly getting to the ultimate Night City experience. Of course, apart from murdering people, which I really enjoy doing, CD Projekt definitely didn't have the easiest job of making Japantown different to the little China. However, they have done something incredible, maybe a bit different than I expected, but still I appreciate it greatly, and that is making at least on the first glance the Japantown an absolute tech fest everywhere you're looking at. Of course, don't worry, it wouldn't be a cyberpunk if there wasn't any ghetto to find. It didn't took me long to see some sex shop and some junkies lying on the ground. However, even this, I don't know what it is, but it still looks cool, and just the vibe you're getting through casual walk there. And another thing that I love is that they didn't only make this a futuristic part of the city, but you can still find these little corners where you see more traditional buildings that are on the first glance overwhelmed by much bigger skyscrapers or random strip clubs, but when you actually walk there, you realize how much cleaner this part of the town is than the Chinatown or the industrial zone. Even they literally throwing trash out of the window, and I'm not even talking about the scenery from a highway across the beach. I have so many highlights from Japantown, it makes my mission harder to summarize everything. Only minor issue that I have relates to the size, because it is so cramped together, you're able to drive across the location in less than 50 seconds, and I think in the importance of Arasaka family to the Night City, this part could be much bigger and even more epic if they wanted to, because literally the whole city is owned by Arasaka. Shame that you can't walk on some of these skyscrapers and see it properly, because it would be totally awesome. Japantown is one of the highlights and you should visit it, so I'm giving it an average IGN rating of 9 out of 10. North Oaks is literally a Hollywood type of dream, but much smaller. I found only 3 mansions there and one of them tried to kill me. Besides that fact, it is maybe the best place for a wonderful view because you have POV to the whole city without some destruction, and I don't think this needs a better explanation. It's one of the few places where you can find palmas and a bit of a more natural rocky type of hills and some epic tower, which I unfortunately don't know what it is and it's not very explorable. But like I said, I was surprised how small this part is and went fluently to Charter Hills, and it was probably the best decision in my journey so far. I almost started to think that this is actually functional and definitely not completely corrupted city, because Charter Hills are probably the most pleasant place to be. In terms of a design, it could look the most generic from what we have seen so far. However, the skyscrapers, again, sorry, they just look epic, and you can see so many details, including traffic lights built in the road, or real bushes making a more natural feel with trees, and finally the sheer size of these roads and buildings. Everything before was cramped. This felt huge. Yeah, of course, it's just one main road, but the sceneries were awesome. With these high expectations, I went to see a city center looking for details that maybe flew under my radar in normal playthrough, and it was a bittersweet in some ways. Because I had set myself a high benchmark with Charter Hills, driving to the city center could have been taken as a disappointment in some ways. Because everything felt again unnecessarily cramped. The views were still stunning, especially with these cylindrical advertisements, but I couldn't escape the thought how much nicer this place would be if you wouldn't had some sort of a disturbance every 5 seconds above you. What I appreciated was a Japanese voice in many squares letting you know that you're still in a city owned by Arasaka. It's hard to describe how many different building styles Night City is trying to mix. Of course, it's a complete tech fest where the futuristic design is supreme, but Night City does have so many approaches of creating these buildings. I'm kind of getting lost in this moment. To get lost myself even more, I found out some other corners where I really want to stay in my house started playing, so I vibe and appreciated some plants covered in the glass, and I don't know how to describe it. Especially here you can find many aisles and details, and the life did get even better. In the southern side of the Night City, or in other words Haywood, the view did get even more spectacular as it did in Charter Hills. Just driving on the highway through everything, listening to radio while I can see the road before me is disappearing and sound of my car is just sometimes suddenly stops. It's really convincing me how greatly this game is optimized and everything has been fixed after 1000 updates. However, aside from the brokenness of Cyberpunk, the whole city center is epic and reminding me a bit of a Japantown mixed with Charter Hills but with details of Little China. So it's definitely a city center having a piece of everything, and after consideration I gave it 8.5 out of 10. But in the meantime, I was looking forward so much to visit the Night City airport to escape stereotype of endless skyscrapers, and after a short drive I found why is there not a single mission or a quest happening. Physically the airport is there and I was surprised that you can actually go into the main terminal, but you can't do anything except getting stuck because Cyberpunk is broken.
Moron. What's up, gorgeous?
We thought that this video is going to an end because southern side of Night City will be just a less interesting place than a Haywood or a city center. I just wanted to end this recording and get to editing. However, I couldn't be more far from the truth. I didn't know that Santo Domingo is divided into two smaller towns and both of them are more interesting than the whole upper Night City. What I also didn't know how huge these locations are. So with all of my dopamine receptors ready, the next day I came to see Rancho Coronado and we have reached a peak ghetto vibe finally. Homeless people sliding in their tents under the Ferris wheel, junkies dancing on a nice piece of music, transporter crashed in someone's house, totally empty roads where you could go drag racing like in Fast and Furious. Then I saw incredibly huge dam not too far from me, and fortunately the road went through the whole Rancho Coronado straight to it, so I tried to explore even this little downtown where you can see creativity of developers trying to make different types of even more ghetto houses, like we definitely didn't have enough of them today. Because of my little monkey brain I just decided to go straight, not looking where my GPS wanted to took me, but I can assure you that it's not possible to climb on the top even you have double jumps. But on the absolute end was waiting a big surprise for me because I wanted to take my little morning swim. However, as you can see, I'm not interested in swimming it's trash because I'm already a trash. So with a big disappointment I took the same path from the other side and went to take a second look on these patriotic houses. I really appreciate someone's commitment for making a whole house in colors of American flag. Overall feel of Santo Domingo is exactly what in my opinion developers intended to. Make this a bit of a poor side of the southeast, but still letting you know that in the past it was a nicer place. Maybe one of the nicest places to live in Night City. The view from non-existing dam is great and I was deciding if this location is worth of higher rating than a Haywood or Charter Hills, and I decided to give it 8.5 out of 10, and pay to visit there is really worth it. So far we have been traveling between absolute tech fest and total destruction of society, but if you want to have the ultimate, not even a ghetto but a warzone experience, you really have to go full stop on this southeast place in Night City called Pacifica. And I'm not counting Protein Farm because that's a big farm of nothing and you have borders everywhere, so there's really nothing to explore. The Pacifica is, well, I think you can see it by yourself that there's everything wrong, but it makes it cool because you can start fights wherever you go with whoever you want to. And as a bonus you can visit a former amusement park while finding many rare chests with a decent loot, and even though the roller coaster is not working anymore, you can climb it yourself and look up for another view on Night City, but don't kill yourself as me. When I spawned the second time, I just draw across this place a bit more to see random things, but there's not really that much NPCs. It's just a true war zone and fall of society, which in the end Cyberpunk is all about. The only true shame is that there was many soldiers guarding something. I call this a developer excuse because even you would kill them, these doors are not going to open, there's nothing to explore. Pacifica itself is pretty small destination when you're counting that a lot of this space is unreachable, but in the end it's about the emotion these locations are giving to you, and this play can really bring a depressed and dangerous atmosphere, and I'm giving it 8.5 out of 10. These ratings are not somehow important for the whole context, but my real point is that I never gave a smaller rating than 6.5 out of 10. The average rating was about 8.5 out of 10, and is showing the desire of developers to make this place truly magic with architecture that's literally unique just for this city, and you will never see this building outside of Cyberpunk. It's a true masterpiece that set a new benchmark for RPG worlds, and I would love to hear your opinions about Night City, so write me some comment, you can subscribe to this channel, and I will see you soon. Bye.